Good day and God bless everyone. So today we are going to discuss the topic learners with additional needs, and this topic contains of four types of additional needs, which are learners who are gifted and talented, learners with difficulty seeing, learners with difficulty hearing, and learners with difficulty communicating. And I'll be the one to discuss the learners who are gifted and talented. So, gifted and talented had a difference. When we say gifted, it has a higher ability than the average people, and while talented, it has a specific area of their intelligence. Then there is a theory by Howard Gardner says that there are 8 types to look into intelligence. Naturalist, understanding living things, or the people who are intelligent with this is enjoying mountain climbing, the hiking, enjoying the nature. Like the subject, mga biology, botany, and zoology. The next intelligent is visual spatial, visualizing the world in 3D. The example of this people with this kind of intelligence is mga architect, engineer, and the third one is interpersonal. People with this kind of intelligence, they know the motives of other people. They're also good at verbal and non-verbal communication. The next one is music. So people with this kind of intelligence is good at rhythm, mga sounds, pitch, tone. Verbal linguistic, finding the right word to express what you mean. Next one is bodily kinesthetic, coordinating your mind with your body. So people with this kind of ability is good at sports. Intrapersonal. So in intrapersonal, understanding what feelings you have. People with this kind of intelligence, they really know their self well because they know what they feel. If they're feeling sad or what the emotions are. For the last one is logical mathematical. So this kind of intelligence is good at analyzing things and at problem solving. People with this kind of ability is Sir Isaac Newton. Now, let's proceed to the characteristic. Okay. It's not all the students are gifted and talented. So, here are some characteristics to define or find out if you have a gifted and talented students. First, we have here high level of intellectual curiosity, read actively, high degree of task commitment, can power of observation, highly verbal, bored easily, can retain or recall information, excited about learning new concept, independent learners, good comprehension of complex context, strong will-developed imagination, look for new ways to do things, and for the last characteristic, often gives uncommon response to common question. So that is some characteristic para ma-identify nato if gifted ba or talented ang atong students. So if we have a characteristic kung saan nato pag-define sa mga gifted students, we also have some strategies as well kung unsaon nato pag-handle ang atong student na mga gifted or a talented students. So, Give them some activities na same ra sa mga other students but more advanced or level up nga mga question para niya. And then, acceleration can make gifted and talented student move their own pace. Give them activity with no right and wrong. For example of that is mga essays. Dili ka ng mga multiple choices or enumeration. The next one is extensive reading to broaden their knowledge. When we say extensive reading, kanang magbasa lang sila without answering any question. It's purely understanding and learning the context of the book. And then leadership also help them socialize, because gifted and talented people are not really good at communication, but not all of them, maybe some of them. Last strategy, we have give them long-term activities. And that is all for learners who are gifted and talented. And let's proceed to learners with difficulty seeing, the topic of Miss Aba. Thank you.
So good day and God bless everyone. So I am Norhaina Yu Aba, and this group is I am going to report the lesson 2 and lesson 3. So the lesson 2, learning with difficulty seeing. A definition of it is learner with difficulty seeing are those with issues regarding sight that interfere with academics. And then the definition from Individuals with Disabilities Education Act state that an impairment in vision that even the corrections adversely affect a child's educational performance, which includes both partial sight and blindness. So, if your students have a situation or kanang na disease or disease, to the future educator, you need to be advanced. Kumbaga, para if ever na naamoy estudyante na disease or difficulty seeing or hearing or whatever disease that they have. So, nang sa ganon, makasabot sila, and students who have difficulty seeing, you may need to understand them, and dapat ikaw mismo na teacher ang mag-adjust para hindi sila maratol. Kumbaga, para hindi maratol yung pag-iisip nila. So another one is told their parents na give them the optical eyeglasses or kanang mga optical devices. So the letter B, which is the identification, which means learners with difficulty seeing often have physical signs such as crossed eyes, squinting, and eyes that turn outwards. So they may also be clumsy, usually bumping into objects, which causes them to fall down. Learner with difficulty seeing may also show poor eye-hand coordinations. So this one is kung mapapansin natin, daghang estudyante na naay problema sa pagpandinig or hinay ang kanilang tingog and malabo ang mata, and basta there are so many child that delay. So if the students have this condition, they may have injuries and whatever injuries that something happened that causes by blindness or malabo ang mata. So letter C, learning characteristics, meaning good visual ability is critical in learning. In other words, learners with difficulty seeing have restricted ways to learn incidentally from their surrounding, since most of them learning through visual clues. So because of these issues or difficulty seeing, other who have this situation is mas ginagamit nila yung mga nakuha o natutunan nila base lamang sa mga naging experiences nila. So, the letter D, general educational adaptations, meaning modifications in teaching is needed to accommodate students with difficulty seeing. So, these are the following strategies may be considered. So, number one is if the use of books is part of your lessons, students with difficulty seeing should be informed ahead of time so that they can be ordered in braille or in an audio recording format. So we're going to explain the letter D. Kung yung book na ginagamit mo ay parte siya ng subject or yung pagtuturo, so you should inform ahead of time sa mga estudyante na delay or na ay disease so that maka-order or maka-request ang imong estudyante na i-voice record na lang siya so that makasabay sila sa walay difficulty seeing so that they can understand you. The second one is portions of textbook and another printed materials may be recording so that visually impaired student can listen instead of focusing on the visual presentations. Okay, all words written on the board should be read clearly. So of course, no, you should read clearly and loudly kung ano yung tinuturo mo. So he or she can clearly understand what did you discuss. And then a student with difficulty seeing should be seated near the board so that they can easily move close to the instructional materials used during the lessons. A buddy can be assigned to a students with difficulty seeing as needed. So this can be crucial to assess in mobility of the students just as going to the other places in school during the day. Yes, mahalaga na i-assess din natin sila just as going to other schools or kanang other places para iba-iba din ang matutunan nila. So, if ever na need nila yung kumbaga need nila i-assess, so why not to assess them para din naman makatulong tayo sa ibang paraan. So lesson 3, learning with difficulty hearing. So letter A, definition. This refers to students with an issue regarding hearing that interferes with academics. The definition from Individuals with Disabilities Educational Act defines it as an impairment in hearing, whether permanent or fluctuating, that inversely affects a child's educational performance. But it's not included under the definition of deafness. When we say deafness or kanang hearing impairment, it's defined as severe that the child is impaired in processing linguistic information through hearing, no? And to the future educator, we need to understand and supporting learners with kanang naay disabilities. We need to guide them also. And of course, para makasabay sila sa ibang estudyante na walang disabilities. Kumbaga, tayo ang magiging sandalan ng mga bata para matuto sila even though naa sila'y disabilities or naa sila'y mga sakit. In identification, to identify the students who have difficulty hearing, we should observe them so that you can understand them. So these are the following items. So, if your students who have a difficulty hearing, kung mapapansin natin, they speak loudly. So, speaking loudly. And then positioning ear forward, the direction of the one speaking. Kung baga, kung isang nagtuturo or isang yung nagsasalita, so nakafocus lang siya sa'yo. And then, asking for information to be repeated again and again. And delayed development of speech. Watching the face of the speaker, and then buffering one ear. And the one is not responding when called. Yes, sa mga difficulty hearing, minsan din hindi sila agad makasagot. Kumbaga delay lang. So, and also has a difficulty following directions. And last one but not the least is does not mind loud noises. Kung baga kahit mag-yaw-yaw or ano man ang ginagawa o mag-music mamang kayo ng sobrang lakas, hindi nila ito maririnig. And then last one is learning close to the source of sounds. So letter C, learning characteristic. Since much of learning is acquired through hearing, students with hearing problems have deficiencies in language and in their experiences. So most of learners with difficulty hearing use various method of communications. So the most common is the use of hearing aids combined with lip reading. Since they miss out in daily conversation, they miss out the crucial. So, kumbaga, nami-miss out nila yung mga mahalagang bagay, yung mga halagang informasyon. So, the problem of the students, he may overcome these problems by wasting time, even though the energy. So, we should combine the two, which is the effort of the parents and the educator, so that they can learn kahit paunti-unti. So letter D, general educational adaptations, meaning there is an assumptions that the only adjustment for hearing impaired student is to make all instructional materials and techniques in writing format. And then these are other ways to adapt to hearing or hearing impaired students. So number 1, teacher should help students with difficulty hearing to use the residual hearing they may have. So kung mga techniques ba. And then second one is teachers should help students develop the ability for speech reading or watching other lips, mouth, and expressions. And third one is teacher should be mindful to face the class at all times with presenting information while ensuring that the students with difficulty hearing sit near them. And direction as well as important parts of the lessons should always be writing on the board. Yes. And writing or pictorial direction instead if verbal direction may be given. And steps to an activity may be physically acted out instead of verbal given. And lastly, but not the least also is a variety of multisensory activities should given to allow the students to focus on their learning strength. And
Good day and God bless. I am Maria Irene M. Orbilla, the third reporter. So let's continue. Our topic is learners with additional needs. My assigned topic is learners with difficulty in communicating. So some learners are observed to have difficulty communicating, either verbally expressing their ideas and or understanding what others are saying. For us to understand the students who have difficulty in communicating, we will know the definition of communication and its accompanying concepts, how learners with communication difficulties are identified, and some ways how to help them manage those difficulties. So let's move to definition and types of communication, impairments, and disorders. Let us know first what is communication. So communication is the interactive exchange of information, ideas, feelings, needs, and desire between and among people. That is according to Hayward 2013. Communication serves several functions like to narrate, to explain, inform, or express feelings or opinion. Communication is very important. In communication, there is speech. So, let us know what is speech. Speech is the expression of language with sound or oral production. Is produced through precise physiological and neuromuscular coordination. When we say physiological and neuromuscular coordination, this involved with respiration, phonation, and articulation. So, respiration is the act of breathing. Phonation is the production of vocal sound and speech through the larynx and vocal folds. Articulation refers to the making of sound. It involves use of lips, tongue, teeth, and the hand of soft palate to speak. Also for the formation of clear and distinct sound in speech. So let's proceed to the definition of language. Language are the primary means of communication of human and can be conveyed through speech, sign, or writing. A formalized code used by a group of people to communicate. So, there are 5 dimensions of language, which I believe we are all familiar with because of our purposive communication last semester. So first is the phonology, morphology, syntax, semantics, and the pragmatic. So what is phonology? Phonology refers to the sound system of a language. Morphology means the study of words and their parts. Syntax is the system of rules governing the meaningful arrangement of words. Semantics refers to the meaning associated with words and the combination of words in language. The pragmatics revolves around the social use of the language, the study of the relationship between language and their uses. So why do we need to know these terms? Because these terms help us understand the different disabilities that are associated with communication disorder, which is the speech impairment and the language disorder. So, speech impairments. Speech impairments are the communication disorder such as stuttering, impaired articulation, and language or voice impairment. So, in speech impairment, there are 4 basic types. The articulation disorder, phonological disorder, fluency disorder, and the voice disorder. Let's discuss first the articulation disorder. Articulation disorder have problems making sound and forming particular speech sound properly. Example of this is a child can't make an R sound and says rabbit wabbit instead of rabbit. Phonological disorder. A child produces multiple patterns of sound errors with obvious impairments. Example of this is, that pie is good. The child will say, ka pie is good. Next is the fluency disorder. Fluency disorder are difficulties with the rhythm and the timing of speech. Stuttering is an example marked by rapid-fire repetition. Example of this is when a child says, I want a banana. Last is the voice disorder. Problem with the quality of voice. Voice may be excessively hoarse or breathy. Language disorder involves problem in one or more of the 5 components of language. Language disorders are characterized by persistent difficulty in acquiring use of language that result from deficit in comprehension that includes reduce in vocabulary. The child have trouble understanding and speaking language. They may struggle with written language, spoken language, or both. There are different types of language disorder. First is the expressive language disorder. Children have difficulty conveying or expressing information in speech, writing, sound, sign language, or gesture. Based on its name, expressive language disorder, it clearly says that child who has disorder have difficulty in expressing information. Next is the receptive language disorder. People who have it often don't understand what others say. They struggle with meaning of language and may respond in a way that don't make sense. We should also mention other disorder with language difficulty. First is the ASD or the Autism Spectrum Disorder. Student with ASD display speech and language difficulty related to disorder that affects social development and communication. Student with ASD has triad or impairment, first with social relationship, social communication, and social understanding. There are also other syndrome like the Rett syndrome. It is a rare genetic, neurological, and developmental disorder that affect the way the brain develops. Next is the pervasive developmental disorder and the Asperger's syndrome. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jocelyn Paculba. So, to continue, identification. So, communication is oftentimes the difficulty of most common red flags observed by the family members, daycare workers, and early childhood teachers. So, because that age, hilig pa kayo sila mag-observe, magdula. So, kailangan jud nila og full attention ana na time. So there are specialists determine a speech and a language problem. First is case history and physical examination. So, in this case, kailangan jud ta makabalo sa background para ma-aware ta na mauday niyang ability, hingon ana siya para matagaan nato siya attention na sa mga dili niya kaayo siya kabalo. Second is, so hearing is tested to determine whether an organic hearing problem in the cause of the suspected communication disorder. So, na-discuss naman na sa second reporter, so dili na nako siya mention. So, the third one is articulation. So dapat yun, no, pag mag-start na ang bata o storya, dili na to siya ibibitok. Para dali ra siya makabalo, labi na sa iyang mga pronunciation. So, pag mag-start na siya eskwela, makabalo na siya dayon. And next is overall language developmental and vocabulary. So, this one is about formal test may be used measure a child overall language development and vocabulary, and this affect how well a child be able to understand and use language. Next is assessment of language function. So language is used to serve and a request or ask and converse among others. The last one is language sample and observation in natural settings. So diri na part ma-observe nato ang difficult of language in playtime. So dira na ito mahibalaan kung maayo na ba siya may istorya, kay saan niya pag halubilo sa iyang mga friends, iyang mga playmate. So C, learning characteristics. So children with communication disorders frequently struggles across social settings, whether at home, school, or in other places in the community. So mag-struggle basta na communication disorder, mag-struggle yun siya og halubilo sa mga tao or sa mga playmate. D is general education adaptation. So there are different strategies and accommodation may be used to provide level playing field for the children with communication difficulties or disorders. So one is universal design for learning. This means that lessons are presented through various means such as using pictures and videos and hands or experimental learning. And 2 is practical tips for the classroom. So number 1 tip is allow the child to sit near the teacher and the blackboard. So kung nasa difficulties or disorder in communication, dapat palingkod nimo siya sa atubangan para ma-focus iyang thinking sa maestra. And second is get the child attention before giving direction. So imuha sa iyang kwaon mong iyang attention para maka-focus siya o makapaminaw sa sakto na mga direction o mga discussion. And that's all. Thank you.